Hello, everyone. My name is Suni Sonqo, Vizcarra Wood. I am part of the Quechua nation from the Andes of Peru. I grew up in the Sacred Valley of the Incas in Cusco, Peru. I am an artist. I work with many different materials, primarily in large-scale sculpture. So I grew up surrounded by very live culture, playing my traditional music, dancing my traditional dances in our many different celebrations and ceremonies throughout the whole year in the land of the Sacred Valley. So just being surrounded by all that cultural richness, and also visiting New Mexico, Taos, New Mexico, where my mom is from, and seeing the live culture here, I think that really enriched my artistic path from a very young age. And that's how I started just exploring my own talents and pushing my own limits in all forms of arts. So including the music that I play, or traditional music, and later on when I started making my sculpture and painting, and also experimenting with video arts, which I've made 2 short clips that have already won some important awards in Indigenous film festivals, and so on. I've been exploring all different medias, but generally speaking, I think I would describe my arts as bridging together 2 times, like expressing arts through a contemporary lens and adapting to these modern times, speaking about modern issues of Indigenous peoples, but also weaving that with ancient pre-Hispanic, pre-Columbian aesthetics and designs. So you'll see that a lot in my arts. It's talking about social issues, environmental injustice, and very important topics that you see throughout many of my pieces is transformation, healing, regeneration, processes of metamorphosis, and in between magic worlds and this reality, the future and the past, the ancient and the modern. So it's about that. And also it speaks of union, of reuniting Indigenous cultures around this continent and the world, breaking those borders that divided us as Indigenous peoples in a process of decolonization, and coming back together, learning, relearning our history. So I think that's what could describe in a more physical sense of the pieces. I would say a lot of them are figurative. I like to work large scale mostly. I love the process of creating the piece and how physically interactive it is to work, like carving big pieces of wood or working on big clay structures. So I love how involved the body movement is with the process of creating the piece. So what inspires my creative process, in an aesthetic sense, I think I get a lot of my inspiration from pre-Columbian cultures, like my ancestors, different cultures like the Inca, and the pre-Incan cultures like Chabin, Wari, Tiahuanaco, Chimu, Moche, Mochica, Paracas, Nazca, and all these ancient moments in the history of my people, with so many amazing and beautiful expressions of art. I think that's my main source of inspiration, and trying to place that in a modern context. Also, big inspiration is the struggle, the resilience of Indigenous people around the whole continent, and the fight to protect what's sacred to us, our environments, our mother nature, and finding that harmony, going back to that living in harmony with our surroundings. Yeah, and the importance of cultural identity in these modern times and ancient wisdom. That's what inspires my artistic work. So the role that my art plays in my community, in my culture, I feel that it could be inspiring for the younger generations in the sense of feeling pride for who we are and what is ours, and learning more about our roots as such ancient culture with so much knowledge, that is being lost in many cases because a lot of the younger generations move to the cities and step away from their roots because of dealing with so much racism and discrimination. So I think the role that my art plays is inspiring and making our own youth feel feel that identity and strengthening that identity and feel inspired to learn more about ourselves and where we come from and why it's important to keep those roots and traditions and knowledge alive for the future of our people and for the future of humanity, because it is indigenous peoples who we've lived in harmony without destroying our nature, our environments. And it's this way of understanding the world that we need to go back to, not seeing our environments as a resource to be exploited, but see ourselves as parts of our environment, as part of Mother Nature. And it is that mentality that has to change to save this planet and save ourselves and all forms of life. So it's going back to finding that balance and that harmony in this interconnected and interdependent network of life, which is how we understand the cosmos, with no superiority of humans over other forms of life, but all interdependent. So I think in that sense, that's a role that my art plays, and also bringing awareness to people about these topics, about the importance of decolonizing and questioning what we are taught about our own history, relearning, rewriting our history, reconnecting. So that's a role that I think my arts can achieve that goal. And I think that arts is important because it could go beyond borders of language. So anywhere in the world, you can see these images and you can feel what these images are speaking about, and people can interpret it and in their own way. And that's how this visual arts can reach emotions and can reach places where we don't speak the same language. So yeah, I think that's the role that my art plays. The message for a general audience would be to respect and value cultural diversity all over the planet, because it is in the diversity where so much knowledge lives, and that's the beauty of life, is diversity. So I think with this modern lifestyle in a world that is really Eurocentric, and colonization happening all over the world, even to this moment, it's like it's killing all the cultural diversity. And that's what I try to speak about through my art, is to really be conscious about the importance of a process of decolonization starting on ourselves, a process of healing and questioning who we are and what we know about ourselves, and decolonizing, and the importance of that process all over the world, and reconnecting to our roots and rediscovering all the lost knowledge that is so important, and that cultural diversity. Now, the message for my Quechua audience and Indigenous Andean people is also the same thing, to look inside ourselves and really question how colonized we are, and how that affects our reality, our lifestyle, our life quality, and our reality as not just as individuals, but as community. So the importance of going back to communal lifestyles where we support each other, where we're there for each other, like our ancestors lived, and how luckily a lot of the traditional communities still are in the Andes, is community based. So for us, there is no private property, private land, or selfishness. We all are one in the sense of working together, like nature is always interconnected. So that, and also yeah, just trying to identify what toxic habits we have that are causing more and more damage, that don't belong to our ways, that have been imposed by this process of colonialism. So looking in back to our roots, and healing ourselves, and reuniting, reconnecting ourselves, all over this continent, all over North, Central, and South America, like seeing each other as brothers and sisters of the same land, as Indigenous people, and realizing how much we can do with alliances, and reconnecting our nations together, how much we can achieve. What I would like to see in the future of Andean art is to both keep alive the traditional arts, but give it the real value that it deserves, not just as crafts, because that's a big thing, is like they undervalue the amazing talent and creativity of the traditional communities, because they just see them as crafts. But for us in ancient times, there was no word for art, no such concept of creating beauty just to be seen or appreciated, but art was part of everything we did in life, and art was functional. And that's what I like when I'm like in this new process of me making art that you can wear, and yeah, functional art. So art was everything. Our clothes was a form of art, creating our instruments, our homes, um, just everything. It was understood as that beauty that is part of life. So I think that all kinds of arts from traditional communities need to have that value as art, not just as crafts. But also, I think there is great potential in the Indigenous communities for us to also have new expressions of art. So keep making our traditional art, but also step into the contemporary art world, doing what I'm trying to do, which is bridging together our traditional Indigenous culture with something new, something that could be futuristic or modern. So I think that's very important, to keep the culture moving as well, because the culture is a live entity. It's not dead. So it has to keep moving and adapting, and And that's what our culture, that's how cultures survive, is they keep expressing with more and more beauty, and it keeps moving. So I think that is something very important. And also I would like to see more cultural identity in, generally speaking, in all South America, throughout the whole Andes, more uh, identifying ourselves as indigenous people, not as Latino or Hispanic, which is the term they've used to erase and eradicate our indigenous roots. So indigenous culture is very alive still in countries like Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, where the indigenous people are the great majority. But people around the world don't always realize that. They see us as Latino, they label us as Hispanic when we're not. You know, we have our own identity, our own roots that are still very alive. We're actually the largest indigenous nation in the continent, with um, in between 12 million Quechua people from the very south of Colombia, throughout the Ecuador, throughout Peru, Bolivia, part of Argentina. Then there's the Aymara people that are also related to us, and all the other ethnic groups in the Amazon and other countries around us. So it is very, very alive. And I think that identity is something that a lot of my people still struggle with, is identifying as what we are, live indigenous culture and indigenous people. So I would like to see more art coming from that lens, from that perspective, from that position. And yeah, just more arts that fits into that decolonization process that is so necessary, and keep expressing and sharing our culture with the world through art, but through indigenous art, because that's who we are as Andean Quechua people.